When a poor country first starts to grow, the world often celebrates it as an economic miracle. Factories rise, jobs are created, exports soar, and millions escape poverty. But for many nations, this miracle story has an unhappy twist. After the first sprint of rapid growth, the economy slows, stalls, and then gets stuck. This is what economists call the middle income trap, a place where countries climb out of poverty but never quite make it into the ranks of advanced economies. It's not a temporary slowdown, it's a state of stagnation, where progress grinds down after the easy gains are exhausted. Since 1960, only a few have successfully broken through. Among them are the famous Asian tigers, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, along with a few other outliers like Poland, Seychelles, and more recently Saudi Arabia. For everyone else, the trap is real, persistent, and very hard to escape. At the start, growth is straightforward. A poor country industrializes by shifting workers from farms to factories. Labor is cheap, exports are competitive, and the strategy works. But then wages rise. Suddenly the country is too expensive to compete with poorer rivals, yet not advanced enough to compete with rich nations producing high-tech, high-value goods. This is the squeeze. Too rich to be cheap, too poor to be innovative. Think about it, Vietnam today can outcompete on cheap labor, while Germany or the US dominate high-value industries. If a middle-income country doesn't find its own path upward, it gets stuck between the two. Escaping the trap requires a big leap from imitation to innovation. Countries must build domestic research, foster entrepreneurship, support high-tech industries, and crucially, create institutions that reward talent instead of connections. Without this shift, growth slows to a crawl. Globalization once opened doors. In the late 19th century, industrializing countries could copy technologies, insert themselves into supply chains, and grow. But today, the window is smaller. Technological change is faster than ever, competition is global, and the rules of the game often favor countries that already have advanced capabilities. On top of that, the global economic order now leans heavily toward free markets, limiting the kind of aggressive state-led strategies the Asian tigers once used. That means it's harder today to repeat the miracle of South Korea or Singapore. But economics alone doesn't explain the middle-income trap. Politics does. Reforms that could unleash innovation, breaking monopolies, dismantling crony capitalism, raising wages, investing in education, are often blocked by the very elites who benefited from the old growth model. They don't want change because change threatens their power. This creates what some scholars call a political equilibrium. It's not a total failure, countries are richer than before, but it's stable stagnation. The economy grows just enough to sustain the ruling elite and avoid collapse, but not enough to break through to high income status. And inequality makes things worse. When wealth is concentrated, the rich save but don't invest productively, while the poor can't consume enough to drive growth. Add in corruption and weak institutions, and the trap tightens. South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore defied the odds. Taiwan nurtured small and medium-sized high-tech firms with heavy public investment in research. Singapore opened itself to foreign investors, but combined that with strategic state enterprises and forced national savings. Each followed its own path, but all three had strong states, bold strategies, and political will to push painful reforms. Now compare that with Brazil. Once hailed as a rising giant, it stalled in the 1980s. Poor infrastructure, crony capitalism, and weak integration into global value chains held it back. Malaysia, too, stagnated in the mid-2010s, partly because of policies like the new economic policy, which entrenched ethnic quotas and fostered corruption instead of competitiveness. The lesson is clear. State intervention by itself is not the problem. It's whether that intervention is used strategically to foster innovation or wasted on protecting elites. And then there's China, the biggest test case of all. After decades of astonishing growth, China is now an upper middle-income country. But rising wages, an aging population, inequality, and growing political control raise real questions about whether it can avoid the trap. China's future will hinge on whether it can shift from an investment-driven model to true innovation, while also reducing inequality enough to keep domestic demand strong. If it succeeds, it could rewrite the playbook. If not, it risks becoming the largest economy ever to be stuck in the middle. Of course, not everyone agrees the trap even exists. Some economists argue it's just a myth, that growth slowdowns are normal, not unique to middle-income countries. They point out that since the 1980s, middle-income economies have actually grown faster than low or high-income ones on average. But even skeptics admit that for many countries, the path upward is harder than ever. Whether you call it a trap or not, the risks of stagnation are real. So, how do countries escape? The World Bank suggests a three-step strategy. Investment, build capital and skills at the start. Infusion, absorb and spread modern technologies at the middle stage. Innovation, finally create new technologies, industries, and knowledge at home. Easier said than done, of course, but the core idea is that growth drivers must evolve as income levels rise. What worked yesterday won't work tomorrow. At the heart of it all, escaping the trap means betting on people. High-quality education that sparks creativity. There's no universal recipe. South Korea's path won't work for Brazil, and Singapore's model won't fit Nigeria. But what unites the success stories is courage, the willingness to change course when the easy gains are gone. The middle-income trap is not destiny. It's a test of vision, institutions, and politics. History shows how few countries have passed that test and how many are still stuck. For leaders and citizens alike, the question remains, will we settle for being good enough, or will we push through the pain of change to become truly advanced? That's the challenge of the middle-income trap, not just economics, but the very future of development itself. If you like this piece of content, hit like, and for more such pieces, please subscribe. And as always, keep watching Global Economics.